I'd like to welcome you to our Fire Preparedness in Marion County webinar. I'm Glenn Ahrens. I'm your OSU Extension Forester in Marion, Clackamas, and Hood River counties. And Extension is working with a lot of partners to organize this session. So I'm going to be your moderator and host, and then be introducing the rest of our panel as we go through the program. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move along and with more introductions here. So as part of this Fire Aware, Fire Prepared program, we call it Fire Preparedness, but this is part of a statewide program that we've been doing since last spring called Fire Aware, Fire Prepared. And that was again, a statewide offering there covering a lot of different bases, a series of, I think, 8 different sessions. And these are accessible through the OSU website on the fire program. And again, we'll provide all of these links for you. But the online webinar guide really runs you through a variety of these, and it really covers, all the bases about before a fire, during a fire, and after fire, how we prepare, and some of the things that we need to know and that we can learn as we try to be more prepared for wildfire. So we're hoping that a lot of you had a chance to view these, but if you didn't, that might be part of your homework or next steps after this session, is to go back, because this is really quite a good lineup of resources in the Fire Aware, Fire Prepared sessions that are recorded webinars. And again, our goal was for all Oregonians to be able to learn about fire preparedness in their situation. But this seminar is really focused on local preparedness. So kind of the bottom line of this is that we're all responsible as individually, as well as in the community and all of our agencies, to work together. So there's a lot that falls on us as individuals to do what we can to be prepared and respond to fire, especially if it comes before there's a chance for any help from outside. But there's also a lot of community level and agency level work, and we need to work together. It's a long road ahead. We're just really, you start from where we are and do the best we can. So with all of that introduction, the objectives of the session really is this local session to put you in touch with local contacts so that you can know who the local resource people are and provide information that's more local. In this case, Marion County, but clearly getting down to your town or your neighborhood. What is the local fire and emergency response structure? What can you expect? Who do you work with? How do they work together? Want to start thinking about good examples of things that are successful, helping communities and individuals prepare, and really get you started with work in your community and neighborhood. So with that, I'm going to introduce our next speaker, who is Amanda Rao, and she is one of our fairly recently hired extension fire specialists, and we've really been pushing hard to increase the capacity to help Oregonians prepare for fire. As part of that, OSU Extension, working with the legislature, we got funded to hire a statewide fire specialist and a fire manager, and then also the 6 regional specialists. So Amanda Rao is our regional fire specialist for OSU Extension in the Willamette Valley and the Cascades region, which you can see here where we are in the middle with Marion County. So with that, I will ask Amanda to come on, and actually I'll stop sharing and just let Amanda say a few words about her services, her position.
Thank you, Glenn. I come to Oregon State University from the Nature Conservancy, where I manage their fire program in Oregon and Washington for about 5.5 years. And a lot of my background is in prescribed fire implementation and wildland fire operations. So spent a good amount of my career fighting fire as well as lighting fire. I started in 1999 on a hand crew based in Springfield, Oregon, and have had the fortune of traveling around the West and fighting and lighting and fire in Western states, all of them pretty much, as well as some work in Florida and Georgia. And really feel lucky to be in this position in public service and part of a team that covers the entire state. So prior to Oregon State University Extension creating this program with the support of the legislature, there was a lot of services across the state, but not a wholesale coverage of each of these areas. And so there was a lot of work that went into an analysis to determine where the boundaries went, and then how much area each specialist would have. So the result of a lot of that work and analysis and work with our partners was the development of our service areas. And we have 6 specialists, as Glenn indicated. And so my area is really focused on the Willamette Valley and the Cascades. It dips over a little bit onto the east side, but not really too much. And I focus more over on this side of the mountains. I started in October, and that was a month after the Labor Day fires that occurred. So we went immediately into post-fire services, and the After the Fire series was part of that, and then trying to help people with the recovery process. But over the winter, we were able to pivot more to what we are really here for, which is helping folks anticipate events like the Labor Day fires, hopefully not that bad, but other events like them, and prepare for them. Because the reality is fire's not going away. No matter what we do, no matter how much we fight it and how good we get at suppressing it, it's here. And we need to learn how to live with it and adapt to the reality of fire in the land and fire in our communities. And there's a lot we can do. We've had the fortune, especially here in Northwest Oregon, of not having to worry about fire as much for quite a while. We have a short window here typically, but that window is lengthening. What used to be maybe late July through early October for a fire season is now extending into June and even May, and sometimes going later. And so adapting to that reality is really part of the program, and understanding that things are changing really quickly on the landscape, and we have to look at what we can control. So in the fire environment, we have topography and we have weather, and then we have fuels, and that's really what drives fire behavior. And the thing that we really have control over are the fuels. We can kind of control the weather in terms of climate change, but not really. I mean, we are impacting weather through climate change, but the reality is we can't really control that directly. Similar with topography, we're not really going to control that directly, but we can do something about the fuels. And so managing our fuels collectively across landscapes, especially in the Willamette Valley, where it's quite fragmented. We don't have large tracts of land owned by single owners, with exceptions, but for the most part, it's small parcels. And so if we are not able to work together across that landscape, we're gonna have a really hard time dealing with the fire problem, which is one that doesn't really care about our boundaries. It might, to the extent that it hits a different fuel or treatment as it crosses a boundary. But if we can sync all that up and work together at a landscape scale in our communities, we'll have a much better chance of being resilient to and adaptive to the fire that's on the land now today. So to kind of like circle back to, the services provided through our program and what I'm here for, where we have a patchwork of land, including ODF and a lot of fire responders, we also have tracts of what are considered unprotected land. And those unprotected lands are found throughout the state, and they're just little places that kind of got missed in the tax base. We still serve those people because we're funded through the legislature. So places that don't have county funding, places where there's been decisions about local funding to not keep fire suppression services, we're still here to help you think about what to do in your community to anticipate fire and prepare for it. So that's really the value of the program, I think, is in terms of really covering areas that weren't covered previously, and to give a nod to the Oregon State Fire Marshal's program that has also come online since OSU's fire program has come on board. They now have regional specialists. They have different boundaries than we have, but they cover the entire state, just like OSU. And now we're starting to work together to make sure that we're being efficient and clear about who does what, so we're not overlapping too much and being redundant, because there's so much work to do out there that we really all have to figure out who's best at what, and then dig in there and making sure we're communicating and coordinating. So with that, I think I'll go ahead and pass the baton.
So thank you, Amanda. I think it was important for all of us, you to meet Amanda, and I work closely with her. We're really ramping up our effort to work at the landscape level across our counties in Oregon. So I'm going to rely on Amanda to help me, with the big picture coming down to my counties. Before I move on, as you started talking, Amanda, I started thinking about the fire seasons and them lengthening, and it starts to we're experiencing that now. So I just have a message. I expect that the 2020 wildfires affected most all of you here, and some of you had to evacuate your homes. Some of you had to deal with weeks of the unhealthy smoke. Some of you lost everything. And now here we are with another bad fire season shaping up. And so I know I speak for all of us here tonight, and the panelists and the OSU Fire Program and Extension, that we're sorry for the impacts that wildfires are having on your lives, on our lives. We acknowledge that the recovery from last year's fires is ongoing, and with new fires this year, this is likely to be a stressful time. And talking about it tonight may be making us a little anxious too. But in my case, there was a brush fire not far from me the other day, and I woke up smelling smoke and hearing sirens, and it triggered a feeling, oh no, I'm not ready for this again. After I evacuated last year with the fire within a mile. So our program tonight is likely to stir up some feelings, and I just want to acknowledge this and with respect and with understanding. And if needed, you may want to step away or distance yourself from this kind of urgency. But all we can do is start from where we are and take steps towards our goals. And so we're here to share information and to learn together about steps that we can take to be more prepared and to help ourselves and our communities deal with the threat of wildfire. So I thought with that message, I'd like to go to our next panel. I'd like to introduce Alan Fitzpatrick and also Cord Vonderay, the Battalion Chief of the Salem Fire Department. And Alan is our Regional Mobilization Coordinator with the Oregon State Fire Marshals. So I will let you further introduce yourselves and get started talking about local jurisdictions and how to work with fire agencies and what to expect. So go ahead, Alan and Cord.
Good evening, Cord Vonderay. I'm a battalion chief with the Salem Fire Department. Salem Fire Department is an all hazards fire department. We respond within the city of Salem and then our surrounding areas. We also provide mutual aid to any of the fire departments within Marion and Polk counties. We serve both sides of the river, so we have mutual aid agreements with both of those. And in addition to just structure fire, we also do wildland urban interface, EMS, water rescue, technical rescues, which include confined space, rope, trench, and we have an ARF rescue team. And so we take care of all kinds of different problems, but we also help out with all of our neighbors when they do need some assistance. And Alan, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Alan Fitzpatrick. I'm a regional mobilization coordinator for the Oregon office of the state fire marshal. My region is kind of the northwest corner of the state and includes 10 counties to include Marion County. We work really closely with our partners in the local government, be it the municipalities or the fire districts. You heard Chief Vonderay talk a little bit about mutual aid agreements. We have a system we call OFMAS, or the Oregon Fire Mutual Aid System. This little slide here, this graphic kind of shows you a little bit how that works. All responses start and end locally. So when you call 911, you're always going to get the local responder closest to you first. As that local response agency exhausts the resources it has agreements with the folks around you. Marion County has an overarching mutual aid agreement with all of the firefighting agencies in Marion County. And they often auto aid with one another, which is a really good deal for you as the citizen there in Marion County. It also reaches outside of the county to an extended mutual aid. So many of our departments within Marion County have mutual aid agreements with the neighboring communities as well. So if you're on the edge of Marion County, you're not just going to get Marion County assets, but you're going to get resources from the counties nearest you. After we've come to a point where we've kind of exhausted the local resources, the extended mutual aid, now we can go to something we call the Conflagration Act. The Conflagration Act is something that has to be signed individually per incident by the governor's office. And that's what allows the Oregon office of the state fire marshal to begin to mobilize resources from around the state to come in and help out that local jurisdiction, what we call the jurisdiction having authority. And so we can bring response from all over the state into that jurisdiction. We were able to do that last fall there in September within Marion County. Currently, we have 4 conflagrations established in the state today that are working large-scale incidents with resources from all over the state. after we've exhausted what's capable of the state, then we go to an intrastate mutual aid agreement through something called the EMAC. And that is an emergency management assistance compact. We're a signer to that on a larger scale, which allows states to share resources. I can tell you today that there are 3 task forces from the state of Washington. That means there's 18 pieces of apparatus fighting fire in Oregon from Washington. And that the California Office of Emergency Management, Emergency Services has provided us with 4 strike teams, which would be 28 pieces of firefighting apparatus from California are currently in Washington working the wildfires. So we have quite the capability here in Oregon. Right now, there's 27 task forces in total. So that's just under 150 structural firefighting rigs currently employed on 7 large fires being fought here in Oregon today. That's the sort of capacity we have. And the local jurisdictions are still able to respond to 911 calls and still able to do what it is they do day in and day out while we have those resources deployed. So that's kind of an overview of how that works as far as the local fire districts and the local municipalities go. I was also asked to talk a little bit about the Oregon Department of Forestry and their capability. The Oregon Department of Forestry protects forest lands, both state and private forest lands in Oregon. They also have their own firefighting capability, and our office and their office work very closely together. We have incident management teams. There's 5 levels of incident management teams in the FEMA system. I'm not sure how many ODF has. I believe it's 5 level 2 or type 2 incident management teams. We have in the office of the state fire marshal 3 incident management teams, and those teams integrate through something we call a unified command when there is a wildland urban interface problem, something we call WUI. We see more and more folks moving into the rural environment up next to forestry lands. Perhaps they have a large tract of land and part of it is forestry that's protected by ODF, and part of it is a structure which may be protected by a structural resource such as a district or a municipality. So here is a good map of Marion County and the various fire districts, as well as the cities that are in Oregon. There are a few unprotected lands in Marion County. In other words, there's no municipality, there's no fire district, and ODF does not cover them for forestry. Just a couple of small places, and we're aware of those, and we work with the county commissioner's office to understand their authority and responsibility for fighting fire in those areas, which they often partner with our office when there is a fire to cover those areas. I think that kind of wraps up what I've got, Glenn, unless I missed anything, or Chief Vondere, there's something you'd like to add. I think that kind of concludes our portion here.
Well, I'm not going to let you get off that easy because I have some questions and we're going to kind of guide the conversation a bit more. And I might even ask Cord just to kind of talk about how it really works. So for a citizen that wants to know how am I protected? You saw that map of all the different fire districts. Not only how are they protected, but when they call for help, when we're talking about how do I prepare for fire, how do I prevent fire, what can my local fire station do for me to help me look at my house or my driveway? Each fire district around the state maybe has a slightly different capability to do that, but people want to get to know, what the resources are. So Chief Andre, you might, just talk about how that works in your district, and Alan, you might reflect on the variation across other districts and what people need to know.
Sure. So the first thing is, anytime that you were to have a fire, you see a fire, your best course of action is to call 911 first, not try and fight the fire. You want to get, no matter where you are, you want to get your local resources going as fast as you can. And then, as long as you're safe, then you can try and have some sort of mitigating factor. So when you call 911, They will take your address, and then the local fire department will have a response based on the type of call that you have. And then from there, if they're not able to address it with the equipment that they have, or it becomes too big, then they will either, like Alan said, either they have maybe automatic aid with the neighboring fire department. That's where, depending on where it is, that those apparatus will automatically go, or they will have a mutual aid where you have to be requested to go to those fires. And then so they just kind of build that structure out from there until you get to it's about 12 hours, I believe, once it gets to more than what kind of the local mutual aid type thing will go into. And then that's when they call the state fire marshal's office and start working with them on what a conflagration would look like. So that's kind of the progress or the steps that you would go from there, real down and dirty. As far as one of the things, figuring out which fire district you live in or you have, if you don't know that, one of the easiest things you can do is there is you can look on your tax bill, and it should say which fire department. If you live in a city, then it'll be under your city. But if you live out in the rural environment, you should be able to look and see who you pay fire taxes to, and then you could call them and talk to them. Each of the fire departments will have a different type of response to be able to address different questions and concerns on how to mitigate your local area. There's also a lot of different web-based information about how to prepare your structure, prepare your house, make a defendable space, if you will. As far as getting rid of down and dead material, having green grass, keeping your house, your gutters clean, just the debris that falls down annually around your house, whether it's leaves, branches, trees, those kinds of things. And then having a driveway that's accessible, and being able to get not just a sedan type car into, but get one of our fire trucks into. Some of the larger fire trucks that we drive around in the cities, they're weighing upwards of 36,000 pounds. So if you have a bridge, or they're also 8.5 feet wide, about 22 feet long. And so being able to have spots to turn around and access, not long driveways that are overgrown. Those are houses that are going to cause us problems if we do have just any type of incident, being able to access those. And then obviously the areas around your house, having good numbers outside of your house so that we can identify which address marker. A lot of local fire departments will have some sort of sign program where you can, a lot of times it's either free or it's a minimal charge. You can get an address marker. A lot of times the fire department will come out and put that up for you. And that just helps the fire department, just be a little bit more able to identify your location. Those signs are reflective, so they can see it in the evenings or dark. And then they have a better idea of where your structure, your house is. So it's kind of a little bit of a pre-planning, but it's best to call each fire department and see kind of what their level or what their abilities are to come out. Just one more thing that we're having to do, but the getting ahead of the curve and preparing is way better than having to solve the problem at the end. A lot of these fires can be so fast and devastating that we just don't have the initial resources to catch up with them. Alan, you got anything to add to that?
No, I think you covered it well, Chief.
Glenn, did we cover some of the things you were looking for there?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and one of the things we'll talk about it more with some of the next panels pertaining to how, when people want more help, they say, well, I want you to come look at my house. Tell me about my driveway. Tell me about defensible space. We juggle that between all of us. And so the answer might be different in a different community. So Cord, for an example, in the Salem fire district, you have a lot of other duties. Who do people go to if they want someone to actually come to their residence and take a look?
I would start by calling our main business office. I mean, obviously we can't go look at every single citizen's driveway, but if there was a few of them, we might be able to send a local resource out, one of our district engine companies, be able to go out and take a look at, just become more familiar with their location, and then give them, information. It's probably not going to be something that would happen, in the next 20 minutes, if you will, but we could schedule a time. In fact, this afternoon, I got an email to meet up with the local city forester, urban forester, to go look at one of our parks. They're receiving some complaints about fire hazard in the parks. And so we're going to make a time and go meet with them and just kind of walk through that park and, kind of work, brainstorm together on some things that maybe, eliminate some fire hazards there. So it is something that we do. It's additional, and all of our fire departments are busy, but it is an additional task. We usually can get to that. It just may take just a little bit of time.
Okay, good. Yeah. And, I know working in other districts like Silverton Fire or, Staten Fire, each district has different capacity, and some of them have people that can really come out and look. But all the idea is also not to do it in the middle of fire season or in the middle of the busiest time. So this is part of being prepared. Well, with that, Alan, unless you have any other things to add.
Just one more comment that I would add, as we start to talk about being fire aware and fire prepared and all of those things, Chief Andre mentioned, defensible space and some of those other things. Our firefighters in a large scale incident are going to go triage all the structures that are assigned to their area. When they get assigned to an area, the very first thing they're going to do is run through a checklist of all of these things that Chief Andre started to talk about, and even a few more. So any preparation work you can do ahead of time gives our crews time to be able to run through, see what's defendable, what we can prep and defend, and maybe what isn't defendable. Maybe the driveway's too overgrown. Maybe there's too much foliage. Maybe there's too much debris on the landscape for us to feel safe putting our crews there and having our crews stay and defend a property. That's the reality of what we see. And so any prep work that you guys can do ahead of time as landowners is huge when it comes to the likelihood of being able to defend your home or your home surviving a burn over when the fire does come through and we're unable to stay and defend it. So it also frees up our crews from doing yard work to be able to go out and engage the fire with direct attack. So those are just a few things that I think that I would close with. Is having said all of this, if the homeowners, the landowners could do that prep work, it helps out a tremendous amount when it comes to response.
I'm really glad you made that point, because that'll be in later tonight. We're going to talk a lot about what people can do and where they can get help to do that, so that it's a lot easier for the firefighters and safer for them to get to work on fighting fire. Well, thank you, Cord and Alan. It's time to move on to the next panel. So thanks again. So now I'd like to bring on Kathleen Silva from Emergency Management from Marion County, and also Sergeant Matt Wilkinson from Marion County Sheriff's Office. But I'll start with Kathleen.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kathleen Silva. I am the Marion County Emergency Manager. And just a little bit of background about myself. I ended up starting emergency management as a volunteer. I was actually going into a background of criminal justice, and I ended up being a community emergency response member, volunteer, and just really fell in love with emergency management. And so I continued my education in emergency management with a Master's of Science with an emphasis in disaster preparedness and executive fire leadership at Grand Canyon University. And I have worked for the Nebraska Emergency Management Agency, and then I moved to Oregon in 2015 and started with Marion County Emergency Management as the planner, and I'm currently now the emergency manager. So I do have, a background that is very familiar with emergency management. I love emergency management. It's a lot of fun, and I enjoy engaging in the community. So the page that you have up right now is our Marion County website. And you're seeing at the very top of the web page, there are 3 red boxes running in our banner. And so I would like to just point out that if you go to our county webpage, you will see information available for the public with regards to current or ongoing emergencies or disasters that are taking place. And so there is one that's blinking right now that says alerts and emergencies. And that one, if you were to click that box, it's going to give you information about websites that you can go to for the Bachelor fire. It is burning in Lynn County, but it is close to the city of Detroit. And you can click on a couple of websites on that page that it's given, and you can see where the fire is. You can see the behavior of the fire. You can also follow the fire on Facebook, and then you can go to the U.S. Forest Service's page for fires. And then there's also one last resource for Oregon Emergency Management. They have a map called Raptor. It is a map that will show you all of the fires that are burning in the state of Oregon and give you incident information about all hazards. It's an all hazards map. It will let you know what's going on. It's provided by the county that is providing the information to Oregon Emergency Management. But if they had shelters open or if they had their emergency operations center open, it will give you that layer of detail for that jurisdiction when they're activated. So it's a really good website to go to. And that's what you're going to find in the alerts and emergencies currently. On our webpage that's up all the time for emergency management, you're going to find great information about how to, build a kit, to make a plan, to stay informed. And I really do recommend that you use, multiple resources. So Red Cross would be a great resource, or the ready.gov to learn more about how you can become prepared. And you'll also find on our website multiple emergency plans that we have. And those emergency plans will be for our emergency operations plan. We are a all hazard emergency management program. We involve our whole community in planning. And so what that means is that we are working with our public, private, nonprofit, faith-based community members in all of our planning that we do. And so it's really important that we understand the community in which we serve. And so it's important that we work with our stakeholders to understand where the needs are. And another plan that you'll find in that section would be a community wildfire protection plan and our hazard mitigation plan. And that's where you can find information about this topic in particular on ways that we work with our fire districts. We work with them about how to become either a fire-wise community, the defensible space. We also talk about emergency evacuation routes in there. And in the hazard mitigation plan, we talk about how you can mitigate the wildfire disasters. And so it is a resource for you to use and to read. And we do look for public feedback when we do our emergency plans. So we post messages stating that we're working on it, and then we welcome that public feedback. If you would like to also just follow emergency management, we have a site on Facebook for ourselves, and then also Twitter. So we update on emergencies. We talk about preparedness. So the biggest event that we have coming in September is National Preparedness Month. So we'll be doing a lot of outreach with the community during the month of September, and just letting you know the programs and the outreach that we have available. We do presentations to the public. We get requested to provide information about, how to build kits, how to prepare for, the different hazards that we face here in Marion County. And so we welcome you to reach out to us for that. Marion County's program consists of 4 people. So I'm the county emergency manager. I have 3 other on my team. We have 2 program coordinators and we have 1 emergency preparedness coordinator that writes our plans. So we focus a lot on training and exercises with our community. And when we have to activate an emergency, we have an emergency operations center that we operate. We have also a volunteer program. So under our volunteer program, we have Citizens Corps, and through Citizens Corps, we have community emergency response teams, the Medical Reserve Corps, and our OXCOM. So if you're interested in volunteering, you can also go to our webpage and find information there about how to sign up. I just wanted to also share with you that you can opt in to receive emergency notifications and alerts, and you can find out how to sign up to do that on our webpage. You can either sign up through the city of Salem if you live in the city of Salem, or Metcom also has a site for citizens alert and how to sign up. In the next couple months, we're actually going to be merging, and we're going to be a Marion Polk alerts and warnings. And so there'll be one site to go to sign up to do that. But currently we're really pushing for our citizens to opt in. And so those sites are active, and that is available for you to put your information in on how you wish to receive notifications. So you can receive them by phone, either landline or through your cell phone. You can put multiple email addresses in, multiple cell phones. You can receive through text or that email. So I highly encourage you to opt in to receive emergency alerts and notifications. It's really important to keep the community informed when there is a disaster that takes place. The last thing I want to touch on, Glenn, can you go ahead and go to that next slide that I have? And then I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Sergeant Wilkinson. This here is a slide I just wanted to share with you. We did face those devastating fires last Labor Day weekend, and our county, our community, our state is still recovering from that fire and the multiple fires that burned throughout the state last year. But Marion County is going to be hosting a community town hall next week on July 22nd, and it's from 6:30 until 8. It's at the Sandy Am Junior and High School in the gym. And this is our after action. What an after action is we're looking to hear from the community about their experiences. And we update our plans by the best practices, the lessons learned. And this is an opportunity for the community to share what their experience was, what went well, what could we do better, what is it that they would like to see the county move forward with when we are responding to disasters. So if you are, one of the survivors from the fire and were impacted by the fire, we're definitely looking to hear from you so that we can learn and we can share those experiences through an implementation plan that the county will use to update plans and to do outreach with the community. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Sergeant Wilkinson from the Sheriff's Office. And I thank you very much.
I'm Sergeant Matt Wilkinson with the Marion County Sheriff's Office. I've been with the Sheriff's Office approximately 22 years, and I'm actually right now being a panelist from the city of Detroit, which was heavily affected during the Labor Day fires last year. So I was asked to come on here and talk about our evacuation levels. The Sheriff's Office is responsible for working with our fire authority to determine evacuation levels and then push those evacuation levels out through us, through the emergency management, social media. And right now everyone's taking a really good opportunity to find out what those 3 levels are: the ready, be set, and go. So your first level is level 1, and that's be ready. So this is the time that we're going to let you know that there is a danger within your area based on the cooperation with the fire authority to determine, what is our trigger point to be able to push that evacuation level. What is the fire behavior? What is the weather conditions, things such as that? What are the evac routes? How isolated is this area to be able to evacuate? This is the time to be, starting to prepare the things that you want to take with you. If you have animals, horses, cattle that you need to get out of the danger area, this would be a good time to start preparing that and getting that ready to go. If you have family members with that are vulnerable or have disabilities, this is another time to, if you have somewhere that you can go with a family member or anyone like that, that's the time to start getting ready and moving. So the second is be set. So be set is the danger's closer. We want you to be ready, packed everything ready to go, and ultimately leaving the area voluntarily at that point. This may be the last notice that you receive based on how fast conditions change. So definitely be, even at level 1, be monitoring those emergency notification systems, such as Kathleen had talked about, the radio, your social media, your Everbridge, making sure that you're signed up to get those notifications. So by 2, you should have getting everything set. Definitely the time that if you have people with vulnerabilities, disabilities, animals and pets, chickens, gathering those things up and going. Last year, we definitely saw how fast things can change. And so being ready and set and even leaving at the level 2 is recommended. Our next is our level 3, go now. And this is the last message that you will receive from the sheriff's office. That you need to not waste time and take what you have, whether you were able to pack stuff and go, be ready get set. Don't wait to leave. This is an immediate evacuation notice and you need to leave immediately. So those are their 3 evacuation levels. A couple other things in these notices and in the alerts, we'll give you locations for where to go to get more information, such as, last year was the fairgrounds. If you don't have anywhere to go, where to take your pets or your cattle, we'll provide that information for you to be able to go there. Sorry.
That's fine. Thank you. I think this is probably a good time for a couple of questions. And, one of my first question is, you talked about Everbridge or other alert systems. How do people sign up for those alert systems and how many different ones should they get on? Because I think redundancy or multiple alerts is a good idea, but tell us more about that.
Right. So as Kathy spoke of, if you go to our emergency management page, you'll be able to get on the Everbridge. The Everbridge is going to be our primary source for getting the information out. Obviously, with the Oregon alert system, we'll be able to, depending on the level evacuation, be able to push iPods and things that push to the emergency alert system. So being able to track what the fire authority is giving. So right now we have the fire burning at 8 miles south of Detroit. Being able to stay on that U.S. Forest Service site and looking at those updates, getting the notifications from them or Oregon Department of Forestry. And then also connecting with, if you're in the city of Salem, on their Everbridge system for alerts as well.
I know in my case, I'm in Clackamas County and I had signed up for 3 different levels, the local Everbridge type. Also was looking at the sheriff's Facebook page. And then there was another more national level emergency alert. And the one that got to us first was the sheriff's Facebook page. I never did get a level 1, 2, or 2, but I got a level 3 from the larger scale. And I guess maybe we know that the system, often doesn't work perfectly everywhere. And so it seems like redundancy is a good thing, and using whatever intel you can get to make some of those decisions depending on your location.
Yeah, it's definitely, social media has been a huge asset for people to gather information, whether it be the sheriff's office site, the Marion County, the actual Marion County Facebook site, City of Salem's, the City of Detroit, your community page. There's a lot of social media out there that can keep you informed. One thing I would tell people is make sure you're getting your information from a credible source though. Obviously we're adding Facebook in there. So as long as it's coming from the sheriff's office, that's a credible source. If you're getting information from, a neighbor told me, that's not a credible source, as well as, just going on to some of these sites that are third-party sites that I'm not sure where they get their information from, but it's not always accurate to what is actually occurring. So make sure you're going to the sites that have been vetted.
Very good, thank you. Now, I think there's a couple of questions here. I'll go ahead and ask them now. Are preparations being made for an animal evacuation center at the fairgrounds? And also we're wondering how OSU Extension could facilitate this, since we worked there and obviously did a lot last year. We'd like to put a team together and have a plan to help people with their animals if they have to evacuate to the fairgrounds.
I can take that one, Sergeant. We actually did a operations brief internally with Marion County about 2 days ago, and these are the preparations that we're starting to take because it is early. We want to be proactive, and so we're looking at having a temporary evacuation site identified if need be, working with our access and functional need populations to make sure that they will have the resources that they need. We're doing a lot more in pushing with social media so that the public is aware that we are tracking and monitoring at this time the fire, and making sure that whatever resources are going to be needed, that we are coordinating early. We are not anticipating at this time to have the fairgrounds open, but if the fire changes and there is a need to do that, depending upon the evacuation levels, that will definitely be something that the county will communicate out to the public, again, through our different notification systems, letting you know where to go, when it will be open. At this time, we are just in that preparation stage.
Okay, thank you. I'll just one more quick question. What are the basic conditions that determine, level 1, level 2, level 3? I think you touched on that, but if there's anything to add to that, Matt.
I think the important part is that we work collaboratively with the fire authority. They are the professionals with fire behavior. They're working with in our incident management team of what the weather conditions are, and just being there to identify what those trigger points are, how fast the fire could move. Obviously, the Labor Day wind event was 1 in a 100-year event, and so things changed extremely rapidly, and we've all learned from those as well. So early is better.
So with that, I will move to our next set of panelists. And so we have Jenny Meisel, Les Bachelor, and Rebecca McCown from first the Soil and Water Conservation District. Jenny, and Les is from Natural Resources Conservation Service, and then Rebecca is from the North San Am Watershed Council. So I'll welcome the three of you, and I'll turn it over to Jenny.
Great, thanks, Glenn. Good evening, everybody. I'm with the Marion Soil and Water Conservation District. We're a local special district within Marion County that works on natural resources. So what we do is we provide education, technical assistance, and conservation planning for and funding for landowners in Marion County for all sorts of natural resource and agriculture related issues. We are not a regulatory agency, so we don't have any power to regulate anything on your property or on your land. And all the information that we provide is free. So we do site visits. We can come out to your property and assess your property for different natural resource or agriculture issues. And our funding comes from a small portion of property taxes from Marion County residents. So we basically put that funding back on the ground in ways to give back to you. So we do have one main grant program that can potentially assist with some fuels reduction or fire hazard reduction on your property, and that's our landowner assistance program. This doesn't just work with fire hazards. It is any sort of conservation practices that helps solve natural resource issues on your property. And you can see kind of we have 5 main focus areas here on that slide. And kind of the main thing that would relate to fire and fuels reduction would be kind of invasive plant management. So if you have large areas of blackberries or English ivy or Scotch broom or other invasive plants, we can help you develop a plan to work to control that, to reduce those continuous fuels and reduce that fuel load on your property through different practices. And we can help provide funding for that work to be done. So essentially, we would pay up to 50% of the project cost to a maximum of $7,500 for some of those brush projects to help reduce those fuel loads. We work in several other areas, just as our conservation district, that water quality, wetlands and riparian areas. So we kind of handle lots of different natural resource issues. But specifically for the fire, we're going to be looking at kind of those fuel reductions and brush management and invasive plant management projects. And just, I wanted to also talk about, we don't have anybody from the Oregon Department of Forestry here today to share things with you, but the Oregon Department of Forestry does also have a grant program right now. It's enacted in sort of some specific areas in Marion County. You can see that here on the screen: Silverton, Scotts Mills, Crooked Finger, Abaquaw Creek, Victor Point, and Drake's Crossing in Silver Falls area. This is for reducing wildfire hazards, and KJ DeGuire is the contact for that. And you can see her email is up here on the bottom. And this can help you with reducing wildfire hazards, like reducing fuels, removing dead and unhealthy vegetation, thinning and limbing shrubs and trees, and removing those ladder fuels and invasive species, kind of like the Marion SWCD does. So if you are interested in having some of that work done on your property, they do have grant funding available. I did just see some information that she said their grant funding is starting to run out. She's been very busy with ice storm damage and helping with that. And just everybody has a heightened awareness now because of the fires last year. So folks are really starting to take advantage of these programs. So if you're in those areas mentioned on the slide, that's where the Oregon Department of Forestry grants can help you. So that is all I have for today for the Marion Soil and Water Conservation District.
Thank you, Jenny. And I guess we'll go next to Les, Bachelor in NRCS.
Good evening. I'm Les Bachelor. I'm the district conservationist with the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and my office is in here in Salem. And we do have some programs that we do offer. We've actually offered them for quite a few years now. And in Oregon, we kind of do things with mostly in the Environmental Quality Incentive Program, and that's our EQIP program. And we do have conservation implementation strategy areas that we work within. And our area of concern right now has been in the Silverton area, and we were moving to the North Santiam because our partners with ODF, you know, had identified we had a March fire in there. I think it was 2018 that kind of focused our attention on there. We are locally driven. We have a local work group, meets every year, the last week, Friday, the last week of February at 9 to 12 here in the Salem office, except for last year with the COVID. But anyway, we do have local concerns that we have, but just concerning, you know, how we implement the farm bill programs, that funding comes into the state and is dispersed among every county. And ours is also kind of geared around fuel reduction, but we do usually start with a forest management plan, and it's kind of a 2-year process. You know, where we write the forest management plan the first year, or have a technical service provider write that plan for NRCS, and we do pay 100% of the cost of that usually. I mean, the technical service provider can charge more for it, but we try to pay 100% of that cost. And you can sign up, and that is countywide now. So anybody in the Marion County, or actually this includes the lower Willamette Basin for Marion, Polk, Yamhill, Clackamas, and I missed one, Washington. So we're all eligible, or all clients are eligible for those forest management plans. And then from those plans, we implement forest fuels reduction, brush management, and the items that Jenny kind of described there too. Those are all cost share items within our program. And we're not capped at the 7,500 as the Soil and Water Conservation District with their landowner assistance program, but we do try to, you know, get the majority of the tree thinning and the practice, you know, try to reduce those fuels. And that's kind of a 2-year process. Like I say, the forest management plan comes first. It was waived this last year just to get some emergency conservation soil erosion after the Santiam fire. We went in and had a lot of contracts just removing hazardous trees removal, and then stabilization practices were for soil erosion. So those are our practices. We did, you know, made a lot of contacts, but one thing about it is that isn't our main focus in Marion County through the local work group. It's always been irrigation. So clients up in the forest area usually aren't clients in the USDA. They're not entered into the system. So there is some paperwork to get into the federal funding part of it. So with that, you know, that's just about it. We did have a program here that just actually closed on July 12th, and we're actually a pilot state. Oregon is out of four states in the nation that we're piloting a new program. It's called our EQIP CIC Conservation Incentive Contract. And we just completed that sign up. We really did have a heavy sign up. But the only thing is, we didn't get one forestry application in that time period. They were all for irrigation on cropland and some pasture and livestock. But we have a continual sign up. A year-round sign up, so you can sign up anytime for that. You know, we do our fiscal year in September 30th, so any application that would come in would be for fiscal year 2022, which starts October 1 of 2021. So with that, I guess that is about all that I have for you.
All right, thank you, Les. And there'll probably be some questions. And you know, when we hear the Soil and Water Conservation and the Department of Forestry and the Natural Resource Conservation Service, you can see there's a variety of different incentive programs or ways to get help with some of these landscape level problems, you know, like with fuels reduction, and especially after the ice storm. I think the important point is, you know, every year they might be new opportunities. And so starting now and just looking at, you're starting with assessing, what do I want to do to make my home more fire safe, or make my landscape more fire safe, or reduce fuels, or improve tree health, or improve water. Getting that plan and really just thinking about it and looking towards the future, and then making sure you're in touch with the various sources of assistance. So just because you mentioned something that just ended on the 12th of July, well, you can sign up anytime, and being ready as time goes by, because this is a long-term process. It's going to take years and also repeated treatments, to really change the game in terms of fuels reduction, for example. So the idea is, don't be discouraged by the revolving door, or the things that come and go, because they will come back. And certainly now there's a lot of attention and a lot more funding coming down the pipe, both at the state and federal level and county level, to focus on some of our problems here related to fire hazards and such. So now is a good time to be planning and to be ready for the next opportunity, and stay in touch with Les Bachelor and Jenny Meisel and others. So I just wanted to kind of point that out, because I've been doing this for a long time, as you have, Les, and don't want people to get discouraged just because one door may have closed last week, but another one will open soon, and be ready. And
Yeah,
know what you want to do, and find a program to match up with it.
Yeah, the only reason we have the sign up closing dates on there is just so we can batch our application and start ranking them and getting contracts out the door. We have to set those deadlines, but it's a continual sign up all the time. So
very good. Okay, thanks. Well, let's get Rebecca, if you're able to tell us a bit more about what's happening with the North Sandium Watershed Council and some of the programs and assistance that you provide.
Yes, thank you very much, Les. So my name is Rebecca McCown, and I'm the Executive Director with the North Sandium Watershed Council. We are a all-volunteer board, but we have paid staff. Most of our funding comes from the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board through lottery dollars. We actually received a generous donation from United Way, Mid-Willamette Valley United Way recently, so we were able to hire some more staff. We are non-regulatory, non-governmental, and non-advocacy. We actually work very closely with Les Bachelor and Jenny, so with the Soil and Water Conservation Districts, both in Marion and Linn County, and with the NRCS offices. We come on site and do site visits for landowners. And kind of our main thing is connecting landowners with resources and information. So kind of helping with the triage of, if we go to a site, we help them identify their issues, and they share with us their issues. And then we are able then to connect them with resources, help them through, kind of handhold them through the process of some of these grant opportunities and funding opportunities that Jenny and Les have talked about. So we are connectors. We also have, because we're looking at the big landscape picture, we do grants, fuels reduction grants. We work on oak restoration. We help landowners with their farm bill programs, such as like the CREP program. But we also have philanthropists like One Tree Planted, which is a nonprofit that collects donations for free trees. And so we were able to connect landowners this last year who planted trees, and we were able to get them reimbursed for those trees. We also have connections with Arbor Day Foundation, which has provided us, they have paid for trees that we were able to get to other landowners. We also have City of Salem funding that helps with restoration projects, because of course, as everyone knows, the North Sandium is the City of Salem's drinking water source. So again, we work very closely with all of the partners. We try to get landowners the information that they need to make informed decisions, and then also just connecting them with funding resources so that we can get projects done, like even leveraging the different resources to help them get work accomplished, and then help them through the whole process of planning, implementation, and monitoring. And that's what I have.
Rebecca, you want to highlight any particular opportunities that are happening now? I'll say a little bit more too about how OSU Extension is working with folks, but
yes. So we do have, there's One Tree Planted funding for the planting season of 2022. So people can reach out to us if they're interested in getting some trees procured. We also have We put in a congressional funding request for fuels reduction work in the canyon, as well as replanting. We don't know the status of it yet, but we are trying to get additional funding for fuels reduction work. So we're collecting landowners' names and their information. Give us a call, we can get you on a list, because we have a lot of folks who want to connect us with funding to get this work on the ground done. And I forgot to mention, yes, and we also work with OSU Extension. They're one of the great resources that we connect landowners with.
And one thing you just mentioned that's important. So sometimes these programs come and there's a pool of money available and okay, get in line. But there's also, because the people that have the funding, they want to know, what do we need? And so until we have a list of needs, we may be in a weaker position to ask for funding. But when we have 200 people saying, we need to plant trees after the fire, or we have ice storm damage, the more that you contact, really through any of our agencies, but particularly through Rebecca, through the North San Juan Watershed Council, and through us at the OSU Extension Service, we're actually going to be working together in Marion County quite a bit, working with landowners and just trying to accumulate what are the needs and put together requests for more help if we need more assistance in terms of more trees or more money for fuels reduction. So if we don't know your needs, then we may not have as strong an ask for the help that we want to get. So that's something, give us a call, get in touch and get signed up so we know what those needs are. We are also looking at the maps and the aerial photographs and from above and trying to determine what those needs are and reaching out to landowners to gather that information. But if you're here tonight and you have some needs, you can tell us about them. So with that, anything else that you can think of you'd like to talk about going on in the North Santiam?
Just really quick, we want to do site visits to help landowners with restoration efforts post-fire. So give us a call. We have staff that could come out. We also are conducting invasive weed surveys post-fire. We're looking for the early detection rapid response weeds. So if anybody land was impacted by fire and they're concerned about bad invasives coming in, give us a call and we could do surveys. And we're also looking for funding to help treat those as well. So be proactive.
Very good. All right. Thanks, Rebecca. And then you'll stick around because we're going to have Q&A as well. And who knows what questions we'll get and who's best to answer them. So I'm going to go ahead and get back to a little bit of a slideshow to close us out here. And in terms of the presentation side of this. All right. So as several of us have mentioned, we didn't have Department of Forestry here, but they are one of our major partners in all of this. Of course, they're real busy fighting fire. Many of our stewardship foresters and others are called out to fire duty, but we work closely with them and in terms of on the ground forestry assistance in particular. I wanted to point out, so OSU Extension, we really kind of were the helping to organize this whole session and put things together. Our main role is education and getting people together for programs like this, as well as we do site visits, field visits. As I mentioned, I work in Marion County. Amanda Brenner, who's helping us in the background and coordinated much of this. Thank you, Amanda, for putting together this webinar. But she and I will both be available for working on the ground as well as doing these kinds of presentations. We have a lot of great resources. And pertaining to the wildfire and the resources that we're talking about, the OSU Extension Fire Program, here's a snapshot of the webpage. This webpage really has almost all the latest resources related to preparing for a fire before fires come, all this stuff about your home landscape and your home ignition zone and fuels reduction around your home, how to make it more fire resistant. What do you do during a wildfire? Which we talked about quite a bit in terms of emergency management. And then again, after the wildfire, unfortunately, we have a lot of work that we're doing there because of the terrible damage that was done last season. And so this page, which will be in your references, is your gateway to that. And these tabs, for instance, here I'm showing before fire during and after. But we, again, like Rebecca, we're connectors and put you in touch with the resources you need. But we have an awful lot of online and written material, as well as doing site visits. One thing I wanted to point out, for example, one of the things you can do right away as part of making your plan is really looking at your home and the home ignition zone and your wildfire preparedness checklist. Now you can find a wide variety of these kinds of resources. Another great program is FireWise USA, which is real easy to find on a Google search. But again, through our extension fire page, this is from a publication about your home ignition zone, protecting your property from wildfire. And it has a nice handy worksheet, the checklist that you can use just looking at your home and at your landscape, and start identifying things that you can do and things you might want to do with more help if you get involved in some of these programs for assistance with grant funding and that kind of thing. And, you know, when we start thinking about what can we do now, or right before fire season, or even during fire season, you know, we won't get too deep into the weeds on fire and fire behavior, but it's important to point out that the major cause for homes burning, which we saw over and over, is not the vegetation, usually not the vegetation right next to the home. It's the firebrands, the embers that are being blown by the wind, and they find the places in your home that are going to catch fire. The leaves in the gutter, a little pile of leaves in a corner by your front door, something under the deck, furniture on your deck, your fence connected to your house. Those embers find things and catch them on fire. And those are the things that you can find ahead of time and mitigate that, take care of that before the fire would find it. And of course, we have a whole programs like to do field programs about defensible space and what you can do. But this is, again, where you'd like to have maybe someone come and visit and hold your hand a bit with this. And over time, we can do that. But there's a lot that you can do yourself with that checklist and just with this kind of reading material that we can provide for you until you have time to get an advisor on site. And these things really make a big difference. And I don't want to show too many pictures from the fire, but as an example, a home that burned in the Little North Santiam area. And you can see, of course, that the fire and the winds that blew that fire were really extreme. And this particular home burned, and the one next to it didn't. Why did, in the same, just 50 feet away from each other, why did one home burn and the other not? And a lot of that really has to do with those details about how the home is built, how it is summarized every year to remove some of those sources where the embers catch things on fire. In the same neighborhood, here was a home that was built just 10 years ago. And you know, a lot of the neighbors were kind of worried that they cleared so much around the building site and they lost the kind of woodsy feel to this home. But they did plant a landscape that was green and had different kinds of ornamentals, which all burned, but they built the home in such a way that even in spite of this horrible wind-driven fire, this home did not burn. And there's a lot you can do to retrofit your home so it will survive fire, or to build new homes so that they will as well. I know that emergency management wanted me to mention that there's a lot more incentives and encouragement for people to put sprinkler systems in the home, those kinds of sprinklers that go on when there's fire in the home, as well as setting up some outdoor watering systems that might help if you have the adequate water resources to be able to water things more when fire is coming. That's something that we're really encouraging, and there'll be more incentives to help people do that. So just to wrap up the formal part of this, and then time for Q&A, you know, kind of your action items from this. We hope that you're finding some really helpful information. We want you to, you know, go back and watch some of these other webinars if you haven't seen the ones from our Fire Aware, Fire Prepared series that I showed earlier, and you'll have the link for that. Take some of the lessons that stood out to you tonight from the webinars and others that you watch, and start taking some actions to prepare your family and your home for wildfire. And then I'd hope some of you are going to become leaders in your community, as many folks that I've worked with have, and start building awareness and getting people on board. And when people see the results of what you do with fuels reduction, or with what happens with a home that is fire resistant, you know, they'll get on board, and you can start making the community safer as well. But you may need help, and I'm just encouraging you. You've learned about many of us who are here to help you. Give us a call, and almost any one of us can help connect you with other resources to get the help you need. Certainly, we're all available to answer your questions later as they come to mind. Again, I'd emphasize, you know, just use what you've learned to start making plans and being ready, for the next opportunity, to make progress on fire preparedness and take advantage of the resources that we're talking about here tonight. And just encourage you to work on this and wish you the best and success, and get a hold of us if you need help. Thanks everybody for coming. Thanks so much to all of our panelists. It was really a good panel, and we'll look forward to continuing to do this and offer assistance in other communities. So with that, I'm going to sign off.